Hello and welcome to this month's webcast here for CA PPM communities. Today, a good friend Shannon Thoke from our pre-sales team will show you a demo of the new role-based user experience that project managers can enjoy. Before we begin, if you have any questions, just please type them in at the Q&A window at the bottom there, as Chris explained. We will address all your questions at the end of the presentation. And with that, I'll hand it off to you, Shannon.
Thank you very much. So today we're really going to talk about project management and how this can be accomplished within CA PPM. There are a number of different ways, but really we're going to focus on the new user experience, and we're also going to talk about our Agile integration to CA Agile Central, formerly known as Rally. So today, as I said, we're focusing on project management. Now, obviously, CA PPM can provide a great deal of benefits for your organization, and some of them are mentioned here. But really, we're speaking of traditional, collaborative, and agile iterative methods for managing your projects integrated into CA PPM. So that's going to be our focus of this morning's call. However, of course, we can talk about other things if you guys have specific questions as we go along. So the first thing, and really the most important part, is our new user experience. This particular experience came out in 15.1. We'll be showing a demonstration in a couple of minutes, but I wanted to first introduce the concept of adaptive project management. So what we're really seeing here is the new dashboard for how it looks in our new user experience. So at a quick and easy glance, you can immediately see how many milestones each project has, how the budget, the effort, and the next milestone is looking, as well as have interactive icons for specifically the people who are working on your projects. And so we'll be showing and kind of detailing this adaptive project management, and it really has some great collaborative efficiencies to provide your organization. The second piece that we really kind of traditionally have talked about is traditional, or often called, waterfall projects. Now, of course, we have a lot of organizations that have mixed mode, or what's often called bimodal methodology, but some organizations, maybe if they're doing an operations project, or maybe they're doing some kind of retail product development organization product, they have a traditional methodology. And so as you can see here, we have a Gantt chart. We track risks, issues, and changes, and this Gantt chart might have dependencies in it. And so this really talks about our traditional project management. I would assume most of you on the call have kind of been very familiar with this particular aspect. We won't spend a great deal of time here today. However, we did want to at least talk about the fact that we obviously, our bread and butter initially was based on this traditional project management experience, and this won't be going away. Okay, so the next thing that we really want to talk about is our Agile integration. Now, obviously, CA Agile Central is a great product, and what we allow CA PPM users to do is bring in their Agile Central information into CA PPM so that you can have one single source of the truth. You'll be able to see all of your projects, not just your traditional projects or your new collaborative projects, but also your projects that are integrated from Agile Central. So you're going to get the best of breed of both technologies by integrating your Agile Central tool into your CA PPM tool. And of course, we provide these integrations out of the box with CA PPM. So this next slide is really going to talk specifically about how we do this. Now, this is our out-of-the-box integration. Of course, this can be tweaked based on what specifically people want. And so what we're really seeing here on the CA PPM side is we could have initial ideas or demands, and that's kind of how a lot of organizations work, is they say, hey, I have a great new idea. I want to take this idea forward, maybe put it in a program or a portfolio, and from there, we create a project and a task underneath that. So that's that traditional name of project and task. On the Agile Central side, we link that project to the initiative on the Agile Central side. Now, we're using the terms that are common in Agile Central, but we do know some of our Agile Central customers have renamed that initiative to something else. And then we also have that feature linking to the task. And so it's important to note that we're talking about two levels of kind of hierarchy on the Agile Central side that can be linked with the CA PPM side. So if you decide you don't want to link the initiative and feature, but maybe something higher than the initiative, say the theme and the initiative, that is all possible with our solution out of the box. But the most common use cases we've seen are initiative and feature. Now the stories and the tasks, those typically live on the Agile Central side because they're more at the execution layer, and they're not typically things that we need to bubble into CA PPM. However, we have seen customers configure it so that we have more detailed information. However, the best practice is typically to link just the two levels of the initiative and feature from Agile Central into CA PPM. So that's really our slides for today. I'm actually going to go into a demonstration right now. So let me share my screen. Okay. So we are now in our new user experience. So I'm logged in as Nicole, who's a light project manager. So it's important to note that in the first two iterations, 15.1 and 15.2, which are obviously both live right now, we're really talking about two things, light project management and resource planning. We won't be doing our resource planning because I know we've done another session on those with the communities, but those two aspects plus timesheets were the first three personas to come out. And a persona is basically, what this is just a type of user or user experience that someone would have. So common personas might be a light project manager, a detailed project manager, a financial manager, a portfolio manager. So we're really attacking this in a persona-based fashion. And the reason that we really hit light project manager, timesheet user, as well as resource planner in the first couple of iterations is those particular users had the most number of users affected by these changes. And so what we see is that over 70% of project managers are a light type of project manager. And this would be someone who typically is not PMP certified. However, they've just been tasked to manage a particular project or set of projects, and they really just want to get their job done. They want their team to be happy. However, they might not necessarily care about all the intricacies of dependencies, earned value, all the kind of classic things that maybe a detailed project manager might care about. And of course, they probably don't use Microsoft Project either. They just want to get their work done. So what we see when we first come into here is we can see all our various projects. Right now I'm filtering on my projects, and I can filter by different things such as active projects, all projects, etc. And the nice thing about our new user experience is it also knows which size of screen I'm on. So if I'm on, say, my iPad, it would resize the number of tiles based on the page so that I'm not going to have to scroll to the right and down too much. So this is sized efficiently for my particular browser. So what we'll see here, for example, with industry trade shows, we have 4 milestones. You can tell that each of these milestones has an open box if they're not complete, and the dark one is complete. And if we hover over, obviously we can see the specific milestone as well as the date. And down here, as I said before, we see the effort, the budget, and the next milestone. And how full up these are indicates how much we've gone through. So we've spent about half of our effort, but we spent more of our budget. So maybe we're going to have to go back to our various constituents and ask for more money because we're going to run out of money before we run out of effort. Unless at the end of our particular project, maybe those people who are working on it are not as expensive. We can also see exactly who's working on our project. We hover over them, it shows us the names, and it also shows us a handy icon so that I don't have to hover over the names. I can just say, oh, I know that person is Robin, because I can recognize that icon. So it really gives you those quick and easy chances to take a look at what's going on your projects without having to go deeper if you're just trying to take a look at when things start and finish and how they are in terms of on track or needs help. And these icons right here will show us whether things are going well or not well. So if we take a look at our industry trade show, we'll go into that project. What we're going to see is first we see a conversations tab. So this obviously wasn't something that was in our classic user experience, and that classic user experience is accessible right here through this icon, so you can go back and forth. It's important to note that these are not two separate products. These are one single product that you can use interactively, and so you could use the new experience and then go back to the classic if there's something that you want there. So what we can do is we can speak to our team or to a particular person. So if I click the @ sign, it will allow me to say, you know, who do I want to talk to? Do I want to talk to one of my team members, or do I want to talk to the entire team? So the @ will allow us to specifically have a conversation with Andy. So if I wanted to say, did you drop the latest code? I can just say that to Andy, and then that would provide a notification. You see this little bell right here for Andy. So you can see here that Nicole had a particular one, and this is from our original conversation. It said, you know, hey, everybody on the team, we made our drop, and then I wrote to Andy and said, did you drop the code? So it's just giving you that indication from a bell perspective and a notification perspective, and those notifications can be sent via email as well. And it's threaded. So 15.1, we didn't have the threaded conversations, but a lot of our organizations said, hey, you know, we really need these conversations threaded so we can see a particular line of what's going on one conversation. The other thing that people said is we want to use the @ so that we can mention people in conversations and they can get notified of those conversations. And so throughout our new user experience in resource planning, in project management, we are going to see these @ symbols as well as threaded conversations. And remember, you always have the bell to go back to see any of your conversations that have occurred. We're going to go into the tasks next and talk a little bit about that. So when we first come in here, we can immediately see which tasks are complete using this check mark. We can see all the various tasks as well as high-level phases. And then we can also see if we click on a particular task, we'll see specifically the estimate to complete, the percent to complete, the start and finish date, as well as various other information on that task, such as potentially who might be assigned to a task. The other thing that we have in our new user experience is these to-do items. So some people said to us, hey, you know, tasks are great, but on a task, I don't want to detail out, you know, the 10 subtasks. I use sticky notes, I put them on my desk, and this is where I kind of mark down the things I have to do associated with something. And so we wanted to provide that to-do functionality. So the open ones here don't have a check mark, and the completed ones down here have that check mark. So if I wanted to finish one of these to-do items, I'd just check it off, and it would move to the to-do list on the completed. And of course, I can always add new ones, and I can just add in my new to-do list, and then it will add that new one, which can then be completed at any time. So these to-do items are very handy for project managers and for individual end users who are tracking various things that maybe the detailed project manager doesn't care about. Maybe it's just for my task and I want to know about it. I can also see specifically who's working on this task. Hank and Nicole are working on this task. And at any time, I can hit @ and it will allow me to then find a new person and add them to my team for that particular task. It's important to note for those users who understand CA PPM that these are assignments. So it's not an allocation. An allocation is at the project level. It's that project team tab that you're used to within the classic PPM. And also, that team tab would be available in our resource planning section. But these are assignments. It's a person on a task for a specific ETC or estimate to complete. Now the other indicators here, we can see how much we've used of our time. So in this case, 53 out of 66 hours. And of course, we can add a new task in at any time. So we can put our new task in, and then we can move it around based on specifically what I would like to do. So these tasks are then movable, and I can put it right here because that's where I want that particular task. And then I have my code drop task in there. So it does have the capability of drag and drop and allows you to drop that task specifically where you want that task. And then I can go in to my details, add in a different finish date potentially. Maybe I want it to finish then, put in an estimate to complete, and do all my task management. Now, it's important to note that this particular aspect does not have a Gantt chart, and there's a specific reason for that. And the reason is that this particular light project manager, this persona of Nicole, she doesn't necessarily care about the Gantt chart and the dependencies. She's tracking tasks. She wants to get her team completed on these things, and so she's not caring about that detailed dependency, that detailed task management. Now, of course, that is all available in the Classic, and we are working on features to bring those detailed project management tasks into our new user experience. But for now, this is a light project management type of functionality. But I would suggest that everybody on the phone attend our end of sprint demos, because I know in our next release, they are working on additional features for project management. So now let's talk about status reports from a project management perspective. One of the things that we heard a lot is that I have to go into a particular area of the Classic product, then I have to run a report, then I have to send it out. So it's a number of clicks to get to value. What this particular status report will do is it allows your end users to interactively make changes to the report. So I could go into this, I could type, anything that I might want to illustrate from a status update perspective or from any of these indicators. I can change this interactively. So this is changing it on the screen, and then I can preview it right here. I also can configure the items within the status report. So if I want to remove one of these, move them around, it gives me that interactivity. So one of the things that a lot of our organizations said is that the project manager is not the only person who does this. They want the ability for all people who are in the project potentially to be able to edit the status report. And this allows you to do that with security. So it's an interactive and collaborative status report. It's not meant to be just this magical thing that a project manager can do and I have no input or no knowledge as to what's going on with the project from a high-level perspective. Now this will allow me to preview this particular report. You can see here's all my specific reports, and I can either publish it or keep it as a draft. If I publish it, it will say final, and then I can send this out to my constituents. And you can see that it does save all of these items. It allows us to print, to download. We can even go into rotate it if it's a different type of report, but gives me all that perspective. Or I can go back to my current one and edit again. So it gives me that perspective. The last piece that we really wanted to talk about is documents. So a lot of people have used our Classic document management and they find it, very clicky and difficult to use. Now this particular piece allows us to see the current version of the document. You can upload new documents, and you can also tag things. So you can see here I tagged one as Shannon. Maybe I want to tag this one as Shannon as well, just so that whenever I search, I can tag a particular thing with any word. So this searching of documents uses this tag functionality, which is very common in social media today. And then you can add those at any time. You can download these documents. You can take a look. And it just gives you some flexibility of renaming, deleting, creating new folders, uploading various documents, so that everything's in one place from a high-level perspective. And this particular feature was added in our 15.2 release. So I wanted to pause right there before I go into more of Agile project management and see if there's any questions on the phone about our kind of new user experience and light project management. Chris, are there any questions?
Yeah, we have a couple of them coming in. One is around the fields that you showed. Can they be done on a global level in the reports?
Sure. I'm not sure I understand the question. Can that person follow up? What do you mean by global level?
So can you put in for example, in the report, you put in a field that appears mandatory in all reports when they're being used, not just for the specific one you were customizing?
So are we talking about the status report? Is that what we're referring to?
Yeah.
Or are we talking about, okay. So right now, right now this particular report is not configurable. They are working on configuration. Of course, any future-looking things are not confirmed, but I assure you they're working on configuration for 15.3 for the second half of this year. So that would be something from a configuration perspective that I would suggest attending the end of sprint demo calls, because right now this is kind of static, what's here. The only thing that you can do is you can change these items, but they are done by an individual basis, not a system-wide basis. In 15.3, what they're working on is something called blueprinting, which will allow different types of templates, what effectively called templates before, to be configured in different ways. So that would be something that I would suggest attending the end of sprint demo calls for configuration.
Cool. There's another question about the documents. Does the documents that you show link to the classic UI, the collaboration tab in the classic UI?
Yes, it does. So the documents basically provide only the latest document. So if you had two versions of this trade show etiquette 2, which had the kind of historical version and another version, it only shows the latest version checked in, but these are linked on the classic UI side. And so right now we're only doing the latest version. At a later date, we might change that to include multiple versions, but this is exactly what you would see on the classic side.
Okay, and these documents, can you do, you know how you do on SharePoint, check in and check out?
It's our upload right here, so I could just upload this and kind of do that, and then I can download it by pulling it back down. It's not like a check. We don't call it check in and check out. It's basically upload and download, but effectively it's kind of the same thing.
Cool. Phases. Can you add a phase to a project from the new UI?
So right now within the new user experience, we have kind of this high level, I guess we could call it phase or grouping, and then we have one level of task below that. We don't have multiple levels of tasks. I know another thing they're working on, I keep plugging Kurt and all the 15.3 stuff, is embedding the more classic Gantt chart, which will allow you more details. The idea behind this is not to have more than kind of these high-level groupings here, so you could call this a phase, but we don't have, for example, nested tasks below these tasks in the current version. But again, for 15.3, they're working on taking that embedded Gantt chart and putting that into the new user experience so you don't have to go back and forth. But remember, the classic user experience allows for an unlimited number of nested tasks.
Great. One more question is around efforts and budget that's been spent on the project. Is that configurable over multi-year projects so that you can show project to date or year to date around budgets and efforts?
Sure. So again, right now these are not configurable. However, I know specifically that these icons and what you choose here, whether you want to have effort or budget or whatever, is going to be worked on in 15.3 with that project blueprinting. So that is something that is coming in a relatively near term. And again, I would suggest those end of sprint demo calls for our next release.
That's great. Well, let's continue with the rest of the presentation then.
Okay, great. So I am going to switch over to this side, and we are going to talk about Agile project management a little. So now I'm in the Classic, and I'm still in the exact same system, but what I'm looking at here is our minimal online shopping site, Gantt. And this is actually an Agile integrated project, and I want to show you that particular perspective here. So this right here is CA Agile Central. We can see our minimal online shopping site, and we see various things such as, all these initiatives right here, such as shopping cart. And if we go over to our Classic, we'll see that shopping cart initiative, and then below that we can see the features that are associated with it. And of course, we have a Gantt chart. I'm going to make it a little easier to see everything, that shows us exactly the length of the individual feature as well as the length of the initiative. Now we can also see other information such as the points, the duration, the accepted stories, the percentage done by plan, as well as things such as the release, the milestone, etc. So it gives you the perspective of all the data that's happening on our Agile Central side is being brought over from Agile Central into CA PPM. And as we move forward these various scheduled states, we can move something to completed, for example. This could change the overall percentage done, and that would move along. Now, there are a couple of ways, and I will kind of go back to here to show you a couple of ways to sync this. So what happens is once you create the sync, you have this Agile Central sync at the top in your actions drop-down. Now, we have the ability to either do this via a job. So for those of you out there who have familiarity with jobs, we can set this up to run nightly to the entire system, or we can run it manually once. So if you know that a bunch of changes have been made, you can run that sync. And right now we're at our Agile summary page for that minimal online shopping site, so it's going to tell us various information about the story points, about the risk score, about the start and finish dates, and also when this project was last synced. So this was synced about 4 days ago. And that's fine because not much has changed with this particular project. But again, this could be synced via job. So this is our Agile Central integration piece. And it allows you to integrate this information. And the nice thing about this is that once you have this data, then it's going to show me and go into our portfolio, into our resource planning, and we can see all the projects in our portfolio that are either Agile or more traditional methods, or even from our new user experience. So we can see that this is a mixed or a bimodal portfolio, and we can see various things that are Agile in nature with this yellow check mark, or the things that are not Agile, such as our e-commerce portal project, which we'll go into next. Now, it's really important that this Agile information is synced with CA PPM. And one of the reasons is that a lot of our Agile organizations say, you know, hey, we're off doing our Agile projects, they're going great, but the governance of the PMO layer says, I need visibility into what's going on those Agile projects. Now, we're not going to change the way they do business. We're going to let them manage their project or their initiative in our Agile Central product, but we're bringing that data in so that we can use it in the most efficient manner from an Agile perspective, and then also giving us that governance that's needed to see when things are going live, to make maybe marketing decisions or other decisions that need to be bubbled up to the top from a governance perspective. So I want to pause here again to see if you guys have any questions about our Agile Central integration. We're going to be going into more of our classic project management in a second, but I can answer any questions about our Agile Central integration and how that works. Are there any questions on the line about this piece?
No, it looks like you did a good job explaining everything, so you just keep checking.
Okay. So we are now going to go into our e-commerce portal project. Okay, so now we're at the kind of final phase, which is more of our traditional project management. So we can see we're on our e-commerce portal project. And of course, we have a team tab which has allocations, but today we're really going to focus on more of our detailed project management for this last particular piece. So what we can see here is obviously we can open up all of our phases, all of our information. We can change our time scale, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you have seen this type of information before, but we can drag and drop various tasks within here. I can click on a task and add a new task by hitting the insert key. So we'll just do a new task. We'll do one more new task. If I could type the word task. Hit those and hit save. And this will then allow me to create dependencies directly in the Gantt chart. You can see that when I drag and drop, I can create any type of dependency that I might want. I can create, in this case, a finish to start dependency. Now, it's not going to spring forward and push that project out until we were to run auto schedule. So it's not like Microsoft Project for those of you who have used Microsoft Project, which will kind of push things forward without your knowledge. It will allow you to schedule. So there are a couple of different options for how you do scheduling. So we can do things such as push out the start date. Sometimes people want to schedule from a finish date, and that's really important because sometimes you have dependencies in there where a particular phase must finish on a particular date. So then you would schedule backwards by using the schedule from finish date. So a lot of these icons here people haven't really explored, but I think this one, schedule, it's basically effectively schedule backwards, is really helpful. Or I want to push out my entire project to 5/18 because I know it didn't start. So I can click that auto schedule. It's going to go out there and crunch the data for me and show me everything that happened as a result of my auto schedule. Well, I can tell that everything turned bright red, and it's kind of scary for me as a project manager because now everything's off track. So I can either say, hey, that's exactly what I have to do, I have no choice, or I can say, nope, I'm going to go back to my original schedule. Now, obviously, you're probably not scheduling 3 months in arrears like I was right there for the demonstration purposes, but it gives you the perspective of what you can do from a project management perspective. So I think this auto schedule is a really handy feature for our end users to use, especially that schedule backwards or schedule from finish date. At any time, we can also create a baseline as well. So I could create a new baseline. I'm not going to do this right this second because I want to show you how this works, but we would give it a name and an ID. Now this ID can be auto-numbered if you don't want to put in a manual ID. But what happens, and let me configure this just to show you. We'll do some configuration here. I'm going to find my baseline dates here. So we'll choose baseline start and finish. We'll add those over here, and I'm going to put them right after our start and finish dates, because I want to show you how a baseline might work on here. So I'll save and return. It's going to add in that baseline date that I just did there. Now what happens is it shows me what the baseline date originally was. So originally our initiating process ended on 2/3. I've started on 2/3, but now it starts on 2/6. And we are now going to potentially be late or early depending on what our baseline did. So what we could do here is we can also see our new task dates have no baseline information whatsoever. So we can see, in fact, that there's no baseline for our new tasks. And that's why I didn't want to create that baseline, because then it would basically have all the start dates exactly equal the baseline start dates, which is typically not appropriate. So you can snap as many baselines as you would like potentially within the system. So you could have one at creation, one at approval, one at maybe a change request you might have. You just have a lot of flexibility in creating these baselines. And just because you were using our new user experience doesn't mean you can't use baselines. You can still go back to our classic UI, snap a baseline, do dependencies, do more detailed project management, and you could use both of those user experiences depending on what you need. The other things here that are kind of beneficial is obviously this contract and expand all. We have a printable view, which allows you to print this particular Gantt chart, which is one of the things in a previous release our end users wanted. And then we also have a legend. It's important because a lot of people forget what these things mean. So here's our progress through. Obviously, all those tasks turned late when we went red, and that was based on the baseline. We can see external tasks in the Gantt chart. We can see sub-projects. So you can see here is an external task right here. And at any time, I can go into these particular items and get more information. So I can go into here, I can even go into dependencies and see specifically where maybe we have dependencies. We have successors, predecessors. We can even go into the type, the lag, and the lag type. So obviously we can drag and drop various items to create those dependencies. However, we also might want to have more detailed information. So I just wanted to illustrate a couple of things here that maybe some people aren't aware of within this user experience that allows them to do more detailed project management than maybe they have done in the past. So I wanted to pause here to see if there were any questions on our more classic user experience from a project management perspective. Do we have any questions?
No, it looks like, well, I saw here they're coming in.
Okay.
how do you get the baseline to show below the milestones on the right side?
Are we talking about in the Gantt chart? Is that what they're talking about?
Yeah, I believe so.
So basically we'll see the progress soon, we'll see the late task. It doesn't show the baseline over here, but it would show and indicate if it were late on the right-hand side using that red. So it's going to configure that from baseline versus current and show it red, but it's not going to show you specifically the baseline on the right-hand side. However, another thing that you could do is you could create an indicator. And so in the configuration, you could say, what's baseline minus current finish? If it's greater than 10%, it's yellow. It's, greater than 20%, it's red. So if you wanted to have a little indicator of red, yellow, or green for how far off it is, we could create an indicator using configuration, and that might be something that I would suggest. But the baseline itself is going to show with the colors to show how far off something is. If it's red, it's going to be late.
Great. I think that will be all. If you have any follow-up questions, please send us a note. One good way to reach us is on Twitter at CA PPM. Also, posting in the communities specific questions around this is great, because not only do you get the answer, but you can share this with your colleagues and other people in the community. And with that, I want to thank you, Shannon. Oh, sorry.
Hey, Shannon. Sorry, it's Chris. There's one more question. I realized it came in to me, I think. It asked, John asked, but are you still limited to the 11 baselines that MS Project will store if using MS Project correct?
So if you're using MS Project, yes, you're still limited by that. So obviously, if you're using the integration from an MS Project perspective, that would be true. So you could open this in MS Project, and then you have that baseline limitation, because we can't control what MS Project does.
That's good. I think we've got everything there. Thank you, Shannon. This was really good. I love to watch these because I learn a lot from them. I want to thank everybody who attended today's webcast. If you missed it, or if you want to pass this on to one of your colleagues, this will be posted in communities like all our other shows. And I hope to see you all next month. Take care, everybody.